It was a scary time. And I wanted him to just go find a job. And he really felt called to start a business. And it was honestly 5 years of fighting and
Mm.
a lot of resentment towards him. I had a lot of bottled up resentment. I realized either I'm going to have to get on his team because this is who he is,
Mm.
or I'm going to have to not be on his team. There's
There's
a
a king
king
and a fool.
and a fool in every man, and who you speak to is who you get. I had to understand how he wanted to communicate and be
Mm.
willing to communicate with him the way he wanted to communicate. The thing that I look back on and wish I didn't do is
Hey, friends. Are you someone loving an entrepreneur and wondering why no one's really talking about how difficult it can be sometimes? Well, guess what? You're not alone. I'm Janelle, your friend, your sister, and this is Real Talks with an Entrepreneur's Wife, where women are sharing the honest side of loving an entrepreneur, but also how they are managing to do it well. And today, I am so glad you're here for this conversation. I have a wonderful guest, Cara Cavanaugh. Cara is a wife of an entrepreneur. She's the mother of three wonderful daughters, also an entrepreneur herself. I welcome to the conversation today, Cara. How are you today?
thank you, Janelle, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm great, and I'm so grateful to be here and just get to know you and spend some time with you.
Well, awesome. I am so happy to have you because, as you know, this is a topic that we ourselves needed from time to time. You've had a lot of experience with being the wife of an entrepreneur. And one of the things you shared with me is that things change for you guys when you
hmm
realize that you could get in a better place if you weren't fighting him and you would just get on his team. Now, what
hmm
exactly did life look like during that time when you were realizing that?
Well, when he first started his entrepreneurial journey, it was in 2008. And
Okay.
the economy was tough back then.
Mm.
We were both, I had worked for a bank that went under, and he had worked for a car dealer that let everybody go and brought in less expensive people. And we
Mm.
were both unemployed for a period of time, 2 years approximately. It was a scary time. And I wanted him to just go find a job. And he really felt called to start something, start a business. And it was honestly 5 years of fighting and
Mm.
a lot of resentment towards him. I had a lot of bottled up resentment. And I realized either I'm going to have to get on his team because he's not changing. This is who he is.
Mm.
Or I'm going to have to not be on his team, which would mean ending the marriage and, that kind of thing. And I had to really kind of go inside myself and go internally and look on the spiritual side of things and think about it, pray about it, meditate about it. And I realized I deeply love this man. I don't want a life without him. I wanted him,
Mm. Mhm.
but wanting him to do what I want him to do isn't actually good for me or for him. So I had to knock it off with my bad behavior and my resentment. That started at first because when you build up resentment, it's like a brick wall, and it's really hard to not have resentment for somebody once you've started building it in your mind. It's really, really difficult. So to undo what you've done, and it's all
Mhm.
in your mind, it's a mental problem, right? So to undo it, you have to start being grateful for him. I had to start being grateful for him. And I had to start being grateful for him for small things like he took the kids to school for me this morning. He made me coffee this morning. I started looking at what was going on with other women friends that I had. And like I knew another couple that was divorcing because the husband had an affair. And I thought, I'm so grateful
Mm.
I'm not dealing with that.
With that, yeah.
I'm dealing with somebody who actually deeply wants to take care of me and take care of our family. He's just got to
Mm.
figure out what does that look like.
You said you wanted him to get a job. So were you saying that to him? You want him to get a job?
Loud and clear at every opportunity I had.
Mm.
Often
Yeah.
with a big voice.
Yeah.
Please, just go get a job. Would you just get a job?
It was bringing in money though, right? So what were you afraid of?
Now looking back on it, I have to say, I don't know. I don't know. It was the fear of the unknown, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because now, all these years later, I mean, that was 15 years ago. We've been married 21 years now, or 16 years ago. So all those years ago, it was,
Mhm.
if he fails, what's going to happen? Are we gonna lose our home? Are we gonna lose all of our money? Is the electricity gonna get turned off? Will we not have any food to eat?
Yeah.
What are other people going to say? What are my parents going to say? You know, it was fear of embarrassment. It was fear
Yeah.
of, and then once all those things kind of happen to you and you realize you survive, and coming out the other side of it can actually be better than whatever it is you had before. Um, the fears kind of they just leave.
Yeah. So what was he saying when you were kept saying, "Why don't you just get a job?" What was his response?
His response was he does not want to leave the future of our family in somebody else's hands, that they can just take it away from him.
Yeah.
Gosh, it kind of chokes me up. So he worked for his father,
Mhm.
and for his father owned a car dealership in Northern California. His father closed that dealership down, and then Jeff went to work for another car dealer for a period of time. And that car dealer came in and fired everybody and cleaned house and brought in a whole new team. And so he had two different car dealers come in and completely pull his livelihood out from under him.
Yeah.
His own father and then another dealer, right? And the other dealer happened to know the family, and
Mhm.
it was pretty awful when it happened. And he just felt like he never again wanted to leave the livelihood and the provision of his family in somebody else's hands.
So he would say that.
Not he'll say it like that now. He wouldn't say it like that then. He didn't have the words for it then.
Yes,
You
that
know, it's
yeah,
taken time and wisdom to learn to have the words for it.
that's
He
right.
can he can put words to it now, what the feeling
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
But back then he was hurt, right? He was hurt by these two men that he felt stole from him.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to leave the provision for his family up to anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
So so he didn't have the words to say it in that way, but was he sharing what his vision was for his business?
yes, he was. And I wasn't really buying that it could be a business for a while.
Mm. What about from the beginning? What about from the beginning?
I didn't think it was a real business.
Mm.
I thought I thought that's nice. Go get a job.
Mm.
Yeah. I didn't think it would work. I didn't think it would be a real business. And so what he originally was doing was, his family owned land, and he was conserving it, and
Right.
you could conserve it and you could sell it at a higher value. And so that's what he was trying to do. And
Mhm.
so I didn't believe that this is possible, that people really did this, that this was any kind of a real business. And then he showed me other, they're called land banks, other land banks that had actually been built and had sold and what they sold for.
Mhm.
And I said, still, you need scientists and geologists and lawyers and all these things that we don't have. And how are we going to even find them? And we need resources, and we need tons of money to do this. And I just don't think it's can be done. And then he showed me on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife website. They
Mhm.
basically have a whole section in their website that lays out exactly, like, step by step how to do a land bank.
Okay.
And so I read it, and when I read it, I saw what he saw, and I thought, "Okay, so this could be a business.
So how
This
many
could."
years in was that of him trying or working on this?
So he got the idea to do it in 2008. He formally presented it to the agencies, which is California Fish and Wildlife, US Fish and Wildlife. in 2010. And when
Okay.
he did the formal presentation, I wrote a good portion of the presentation. I worked on it with him.
Awesome.
And when it was accepted by the agencies, that's when I really began to believe it could be done. That's when I believed in it. So it
Yeah.
was a good 2 years of, it was at least a year of him convincing me it could be
Yeah.
done, and then I read it, and then I started to really think, "Okay, but how do we get all these people that we're gonna need that are experts? Because 'Cause I'm not an expert in this, and neither is
Mhm.
he." And, it took our biologist believing in the project and wanting to work on it, like, Jeff will say on the come, but what he means is he donated his time to be
Mhm.
paid back when, when credits sell.
Okay.
Yeah. And when he was willing to do that, that really built my faith that this could be real, that somebody outside of the two of us believed in it.
Yeah.
And now all these years later, we've had so many wonderful attorneys and biologists and geologists and different people that are experts in their field
Yeah.
that have come alongside of us and worked on it, and they have become lifelong friends. And they've got all the acronyms after, Doctor of Dirt and
Did your husband ever get to the point where he said, "Baby, I told you so"?
No, he's never done that to me. He's never said, "I
Good.
told you so." He's
Good.
never done that. But, we'll sit there and look back on things and kind of marvel at how far it's come and think, how did we get here?
Oh.
And I'll marvel at how, and I think anybody in business will say this, how you have a problem and you need to
Mhm.
figure out a solution for it,
Mhm.
and the solution just shows up. If it's the right person or the money that you need to solve the problem,
Mhm.
or, people on your team coming together and agreeing to do something they would normally agree to do, or whatever it is, it's always amazing how in business you have to overcome some sort of massive problem
Yeah.
to get the business going forward, and the resources show up. They do without fail.
Yeah.
So,
So when you said you realized that you had to get on his side and not fight with him, when you decided to get on his side, and I know you said you have to be more grateful. So what did it look like from a practical standpoint? Like, how did your behavior change?
when you are grateful for something or someone, you are much
Mhm.
more willing to serve. And as wives, our position is really a position of service. It does not mean we're second class citizens or subservient or anything like that. That's not what I mean. In order for our husbands to lead, we have to be willing to be second in command. There can't be two leaders. You can't have two captains on a ship, right? Uh, it just doesn't work. The ship will sink.
Mhm.
And so, but you do need a second officer, and that's our job as wives, right? And it's a very important job. The
Absolutely.
captain can't do his job if we don't do our job. He
Mhm.
can't. This ship will sink. And when I started putting away my resentment, and I resented his dad for the way he shut down the old dealership and left my husband
Mhm.
without work. And then I
Yeah.
resented the fact that this land that Jeff was working on belonged, to the family and belonged to his dad. So I was like,
Mhm.
can we just get away from these people?
Oh.
Can we just take a break? And now, his dad died about 3 years ago, and I'd give anything
Mhm.
to see him again and give him a hug because he became very dear to me,
Wow.
over all those years of working together on this thing. And I think when we set aside, the things that we're aggravated or irritated about, and we get
Mhm.
about the business of serving, it's how you fall in love with your children, right? When you first have your babies, they're brand
Yeah.
new and you don't know them, but as you're changing their diapers and you're taking care of them, you fall in love with them and you fall in love with them through acts of care, right? And
That
really,
sounds
that's how
good.
you fall in love with your husband is through acts of care,
Yeah.
you know? And so you have to put away your own feelings about things, set them aside for a minute, and just be about the business of care. And then it's kind of incredible the way it'll
A
it'll
transformation.
yeah, it'll put the gratitude back in your heart. It'll it'll give you gratitude for your position,
Yeah.
you know.
So you were looking at some of the other relationships around you, and you realize that you're not dealing with a lot of the issues that other people were dealing with, but you still had some other fears, from instability. So how
Mhm.
did you kind of put that fear to rest?
Well, for a number of years, I didn't work after the banks fell in 2009, and I was working for a bank at the time. My husband was working for the second car dealership, and, when he was let go, I was let go 2 months later because the bank went under.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so
I'd have
both of
been
us yeah, it
Yes,
was
I can
awful.
see where that fear came for sure.
Yeah, so from and that was in 2009, it was the lowest of the low, and there was no I mean, I couldn't get another bank job to save my life.
Mm.
There just wasn't work. And so and then right in the middle of it, at the okay, so if we wanna get into the nitty-gritty, during that time, I got so stressed out that my period stopped for about 9 months. And, I'm happy sharing this with the world, because it happened.
It happens,
And
yeah.
it happened, and it happens to a lot of women that, stress can really affect our hormones and how we're
That's
able
right.
to function. And so when it happened to me, we didn't have any work, we didn't have any jobs, so we didn't have any health care. So I had called
Mm.
my old OBGYN and told her the situation, and she had recommended a naturopath to me that I could go and pay cash and be seen and get some help
Mhm.
for this problem. And she said, I could put you on a Clomid, but you're going to be miserable and climbing the walls. And I don't think that's what you need. I think if you went with something natural, you're going to feel better faster and it'll give you longer lasting, relief. And so I went to this naturopath and she put me on a bunch of Chinese herbs and she was fantastic. She took her time with me and listened to the situation. But these herbs had me climbing the walls. Well, because, they affect your libido.
Well, your husband may have been a little happy about that part, but go ahead, go
Oh,
ahead.
he's stressed out from not working. I'm stressed out from not working. Guess what we weren't doing?
You weren't
And then,
resting.
and then suddenly I'm drinking this Chinese tea, and that's all I want to do.
So is that when the 3 girls came?
That's what number three. That's how number three got here.
Okay.
And that was a tough time because I was looking for work and then all of a sudden I was pregnant. And so, it wasn't actually a good time for me to go. And I now looking back on it, the Lord totally had his hand on every single step of the way, like, no, you do need to stay home during this time. Yes, you're broke. It's okay. I'm going to provide.
I'm gonna provide, yeah.
You need to just know you're one of my girls and I'm going to provide, and that's the thing that I had to really, really recognize is that
Mm,
provision comes from the Lord. It
mm,
might come through my husband, but it
yeah,
comes from the Lord every single time, hands
yeah,
down. It might come through me in the work that
yes,
I'm doing, but it
mhm.
comes from the Lord. And so I stayed home. I stayed home until 2018. And in
Okay.
2018, that's when I went back to work. And when I went back to work, I became a real estate agent as opposed to working in a bank because I wanted flexibility and I wanted to be able to, my kids were still small. My youngest was in kindergarten. I still wanted to be able to be nearby
Yeah.
and come home for them when they needed me. And yeah, so that's what we did.
So the fear kinda went away when you realized that your provision came from the Lord?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And when it really hit me that provision comes from the Lord, I really began to understand that
Mhm.
I don't have to fear not having provision,
Mhm.
because if
Mhm.
he loves me enough that he would send his son to die for me,
Amen. Yeah.
making sure that I eat and my family eats,
Mm.
that is such a small thing
Yeah.
compared to what he's already given. And,
Yes.
the Paul says we were saved by faith for works, right? So if we believe that our accepting of Jesus's death on the cross for our sins is for us, then we
Right.
believe that the Lord has works for us that
Right.
are set for aside for us to do on the other side of our accepting his son as our savior,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
there's provision in that. He's not going to
Mhm.
give us good work to do without providing the tools and the resources that we're going to need to do the work that he has set aside for us.
Right.
And so, I mean, if we believe these things to be true, we don't have to have fear. What is
Yeah.
there to fear? We
Yeah.
just have to be willing to do the work that he's set aside and be willing to ask him what
Mhm.
is that work that he has for us. I mean, it's really kind of childlike, you know?
That is so true. We get grown and we forget about where provision comes, and we get all these worries and concerns and things like that when he is truly the source.
He's truly the source,
Yeah.
and we don't have to have fear,
Yeah.
you know?
So
Even
was
when we feel like our husbands aren't acting like we think they should act, or,
mhm.
maybe acting a little bit, we wish they'd grow up or act differently, or you know what I mean? Like, not doing the things that we think they should be doing.
Joy, yeah.
This is what I always come back to when I get aggravated at my husband, and I'll pray about it. The Lord will always remind me, "You asked for a husband, and this is the one I gave you." Like, I hear it like I have my dad talking to me, and I'll think, "Okay."
Okay. I hear
Sometimes
you.
I'll get mad and I'll go, "Well, then you deal with him."
Right, right.
And then I can hear the Lord going, "Do I need to deal with him or do I need to deal with you?"
Oh, that is so true, and he will.
And he will.
He
And
absolutely
sometimes that's
will.
not fun.
Yeah. So you mentioned there was some resentment, but you started to change. Did your husband recognize the change in your behavior and your attitude?
Mhm.
Did he recognize it pretty early?
I would say that he responded to the change in me as opposed to recognizing it.
Yeah.
I would say that he responded to the change in me, you know, that
Good.
I began to, "Hey, are you hungry? Can I bring you a sandwich? How are you doing? I love you."
Mhm.
And instead of just going and buying something or going and doing something, I would
Mhm.
call him and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?" And defer to his opinion. And I
Mhm.
kind of forced myself to do that. Not not so much that I had to. And I know
Mhm.
that there's a lot of women that have marriages where they do have to.
Yeah.
No, ours has never been that way. But I did it out of respect for him. And I
Mhm.
noticed that he responded to me differently. I remember I called him up one time and I wanted to buy a piece of jewelry. And it wasn't
Mhm.
like it was that expensive, but I just thought it was pretty and I wanted it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Sure, go ahead." And I thought, "Really?" Like, I was expecting you to say no, And he said, "I'm never gonna say no to you." And I thought, "That's so sweet." And then it also kind of I thought, "That is so sweet." And then I thought, "That is something that I never wanna take advantage of."
Yeah.
You know?
You shared that when you changed and instead of fighting him, you got on his side. The money didn't change right away, but the peace did.
Mhm, mhm,
The peace did. So less arguing. You weren't
mhm,
telling him go get a job.
mhm.
So what did it do for his confidence? Did you notice a change in how he was moving and his confidence in how he spoke with people about his business?
I did notice a change in him. I
Yeah.
noticed that things started getting done faster. I noticed that I could hear him on the phone when he was talking. to other men in particular, and he spoke with more authority and spoke with more confidence. And I noticed things started happening at a faster pace. And then I realized, I thought, oh my gosh, have I been the bottleneck of this whole thing? You know? Because what is the saying that there's a king and a fool in every man, and who you speak to is who you get, you
Oh,
know?
I hadn't heard that one.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Say it
and
again.
so there's
There's
a
a king and
king
a fool.
and a fool in every man, and who you speak to is who you get.
Ooh, that's so good. I had
That's
never heard
good.
that before. Yeah,
So if you speak to the king, I mean, you think about how would you speak to a king? You speak to him with
right.
respect,
With the
with
respect.
reverence for his authority,
Yeah,
you know? If you speak to a fool, how are you gonna speak to him? "You fool.
like a
Can you
fool,
please take
foolish.
this garbage out?
Yep,
Can you please help me
yep,
with these children?" You speak to
yeah,
him like you have to run him around like a child, you know? And then we get surprised when we get those behaviors.
right. That is so true.
So, we've made it to this point in the episode, and you're still here with us. I truly believe that something was said in this conversation that spoke to you. And because of that, I encourage you to take a few moments to journal about what resonated in your mind and in your heart. Journaling can be such a powerful form of self care and clarity. And I would love to help you with that. Simply send me an email to realtalkswithjanelle@gmail.com and I'll send a journal prompt directly to your inbox. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
So at some point, you started working,
Mhm.
but he was working on his business, so you guys had to have income coming in from somewhere.
So, while he was working on his business, he was working part-time at a wine bar in the Oakland airport, and he stayed there for 13 years. And then during as he was working on and building in this business, he would have it was kind of incredible how these odd jobs would come up that he would end
Okay.
up getting hired to work on. Like, well, for instance, we needed to have drone photos of the property done, and
Mhm.
we figured out that it was going to be kind of expensive. Like, the cost of having a drone photographer come out and shoot the photography was just as expensive as just going and buying our own drone.
On drone.
So Jeff went and bought his own drone and taught himself to be a drone pilot, and he even went, to flight school and all that for drone pilots and, like, got FAA like, he did the whole thing, and then he started getting hired to do drone pilot work, like, these
Nice.
yeah, so that became a, extra income, and then, he would DJ in San Francisco at nightclubs, and that was income. He would, um he would work consulting gigs because a lot of what he was doing on the land was, working with landmen, working with the different owners that were around us, including our
Mhm.
land, working,
Mhm.
researching mineral rights. And then you do all that kind of work and you really learn, you learn how to research, you learn how to look, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And, researching pipelines, researching the old easement agreements that were recorded against our title, all
Mhm.
these old things that normal people aren't going to know about and know how to research or know how to look up, know how to do anything about. He learned, and then he would end up getting hired as kind of a consultant to help our neighbors and, other landowners up there to do similar projects that he already knew. Oh, you go talk to this guy at the county and, or you talk to this guy at the Department of Oil and Gas and, like he just learned who to talk
Yeah.
to and what to say and what you're looking for and what is,
Mhm.
you know, and, so that was extra income. Yeah, he did, and then our land is in what's called a, reclamation district, and there's reclamation districts all across the country. Basically what it is a group of landowners will get together and say, "Okay, we all have to maintain this stretch of road, or we all have to maintain this levee." And because
Okay.
if they only do their section and the neighbor doesn't do their section, and then that section fails, everybody floods, right?
Everybody.
Or
That's right.
yeah, so what they'll do is they'll get together, it's kind of like an HOA,
Yep.
you know, and they'll all figure out, how they're gonna manage it, and then if there's some big thing that happens where they need federal funding to fix something, then they can all go in on it together and get it. And so he started managing that for our reclamation district. It was a group of 5 properties
Yeah.
and would manage projects, and he'd get paid to do that. And that was how he made it, how he made enough money to support our family. And
Okay.
he did that from 2010 until he still does it. He still does it. And then I went back to work in 2018,
Yeah.
and I started making a decent income about halfway through 2018, and then I've been the primary breadwinner since, as he's worked his, because this thing that he's doing is a long haul,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's good though, because you guys, I mean, he recognized that there was value in you staying home with the kids,
Mhm.
but the bills had to be paid. So he stepped up and did that in order to make sure that your baby girls were taken care of, by someone he loved and trusted. But he did work and he provided for the family. So he wasn't just, you know, trying endlessly to do a business without providing for the
No,
family. So
no,
that's good.
he did provide. It might not, I mean, in my mind, the thing I struggled with is I could see he had the potential to bring in a larger income, but that would have taken away from the work that he needed to do to build up the mitigation
Yeah.
project that we had. And I
Mhm.
struggled with that because I often struggled with, you're smart and capable. Just go get a real estate license and do real estate with me. You'll make good money. You're personable. People will
Right.
work with you. I thought about that. I thought, well, what if he sold insurance? But that's not what he wanted, you know?
Yeah.
He didn't want to do those things.
Right,
Right?
right,
You
right.
know, he wanted to focus and stay the course on the mitigation, and then as opportunities to earn extra income came, he took them. He never turned them down.
That's good.
But yeah,
That's good. So, what is something that, you wish you knew sooner? I mean, I know we have to have experiences to learn things, but if you could go back, what is something that you wish you knew sooner about being married to an entrepreneur that you would go back and just kind of talk to yourself about?
I wish I would have put my faith in the Lord sooner and in the Lord's ability and willingness to provide.
Yeah.
I would have been less angry, and 'cause I was mad at him, like, "Can't you just get a normal job?" Like, and I saw other wives with their husbands, and they're getting ahead in their careers, and it felt like we were spinning our wheels and not getting ahead, and I saw them taking family vacations, and we can't afford to do that, and, going to Hawaii or something like that, and we
Mhm.
couldn't afford to do those things, and
Yeah.
or buying new clothes for the kids, and I'm still shopping at Goodwill and stretching a dollar. And, for
Mhm.
like, I remember when the kids were little, I used to flip furniture. I did that for years. And I always had
Wow.
like piles of furniture on my front porch and people coming and, buying a table or end tables or, lamps or whatever. And I did that for years, and I always thought, if he would just make ends meet, I wouldn't have to do this, and our front porch wouldn't have to look like a, junk pile all the time. And, thinking like that is actually kind of bad thinking, right? It's putting him down, it's putting me down, it's resentful thinking, and
Yeah.
it's not recognizing the Lord's provision in all of that. Who cares what my front porch looks like? Nobody ever cared. My kids never cared. You know? I met so many interesting people flipping furniture,
Yeah, so
and,
it's about that mindset shift.
it's about a mindset shift, and it's about, if I had just come to the realization that the Lord was allowing me to have all that, stuff piled up on the porch,
Mm,
and that it had a family to go to, and that it was a form of provision, I would have been grateful and not have been aggravated. And I spent too much time being ungrateful and
ungrateful.
aggravated.
Yeah, yeah. So, with as far as your growing up, did your dad was he the main provider for your household?
He
Yeah.
was. Yeah. My dad was military. My mom didn't. My mom worked for a brief period when I was a senior in high school. But
Mhm.
other than that, she didn't work
Yeah.
until
So it's easy, when we look back on how we were raised to have a
mhm,
certain expectation, but also, like you said, looking at what's going on around you with other relationships. And I don't know that I would say that all the time is jealousy per se.
mhm,
Sometimes I think it's just a matter of recognizing I see that and I like what I see and I would like to have that as well. Not so
mhm,
much of it being like I'm jealous, I'm, envious, so to speak. A lot of things we won't know we want it until we see it. So I don't think
mhm,
that's
mhm.
necessarily a bad thing, but like you said, whenever you are thinking about it and becoming resentful with your partner, that's where the trouble comes in.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it really and looking at what the thing that I look back on and wish I didn't do is I'd look at my girlfriends and what they had, wish I had that what they had, right? And so I would compare myself to them,
yeah,
right? The comparing is where you can really because I'm running my own race, they're running their own race. I'm not
that's
married
right.
to their husband. I don't know what they put up with,
Yeah.
you know? I don't know what happens behind their closed doors. So why
Mhm.
looking back on it, in realizing, what some of my girlfriends were actually going through, I think, why did I spend so much time comparing? Like, who cares? You know, it's it's much better to just run your own race and don't look side to side.
That's really, really some good advice. So what does being on his side look like now?
Well, we talk on the regular. We talk and which we didn't necessarily do at the beginning. And so we make a point to check in at least once a month about finances. We have a financial talk. That I have found very helpful because what I realized he was carrying the load and I was carrying the load and we were both doing it individually and not communicating about how best so what was really happening is there was no plan. Right? If I'm carrying the load and not telling him how worried I am about how we're gonna make the bills, and he's carrying the
Yeah.
load and not telling me how worried he is about making the bills, there's
Mhm.
no plan. But if we sit down and we say, okay, I've got this many homes for sale and I expect this one to close on this date. And out of that, I'm going to have X amount of money from my commission. And,
Yeah.
and now he's all these years later, he's started a second business that's a car care product business. And he sells car care product as
Yeah.
well. And that brings in regular income. So he'll say, okay, well, my sales for this month are X amount and this is what we're doing. So we can sit down and say, okay, so this is how we're going to pay, you know, the monthly note, and this is how we're going to
Mhm.
pay the kids' tuition and the food and,
Yeah.
utilities and whatever needs to get paid. And we can sit down and have a conversation about it. And then you know what?
What?
Even though we're still carrying a load,
Yeah.
there's a plan. And just by the simple act of having a plan,
Mhm.
it feels like so much stress has been relieved.
Right.
Because if I don't communicate to him how my business is doing and what I'm working on, it's like there's no money coming in from my side for him. And if he doesn't communicate with me about how his business is doing and what he's expecting to come in,
Mhm.
it's like there's no money coming in from his side. So having that communication is key because yes, we're both still carrying the load, but now there's a
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
you know, and it relieves a lot of the stress.
You can give grace. It's easier to give grace when you understand that you're not the only one carrying the load. So
Mhm.
having the communication definitely helps with that. Now, do you guys schedule your monthly meeting? Is it like a standing appointment?
We did for a while, now not so much because it's habit, so we just do it,
Okay.
right? And it happens around the 1st of the month, and we just do it. We just have a conversation of what's coming in and that kinda thing. But for a while, we did, and
Mhm.
you know what we did? We did, the Dave Ramsey.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I listen
We
to
did
Dave
Dave
Ramsey
Ramsey.
enough. Yeah, yeah. That's good.
So, yeah, we did Dave Ramsey, like, oh gosh, 11 or 12 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And doing Dave Ramsey, you have to do, and then when you first start doing it, there's a lot of yelling and screaming and
Yeah,
me screaming, him yelling.
that will create some discipline, but it will also uncover a lot of your
Mhm.
imperfections and your gaps for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. And it'll make you get a plan. And then once you get a plan, it relieves a lot of stress because you feel safe, right?
Yep.
You feel a lot safer. Like, okay, if we follow the plan, it's going to be okay, right? Like following the recipe. You'll have a cake at the end of it if you just
At the
follow the
end,
recipe.
that's right. That's right. So, are there any boundaries that you had to set for yourself during these difficult times whenever you were feeling angry, feeling upset, feeling fearful?
I would say that we had to learn how to fight better. We had to learn how to fight constructively.
Yeah.
I don't care who you're married to, you're going to have friction at some point. If you're going to live with somebody, there's going to be friction at some point. Like it's going to come down to, will you please just close the drawers when you leave the kitchen? Not
Mhm.
every drawer in the kitchen needs to be open,
Right.
or
Right. My
turn
kids
off the
do that.
lights or, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And, I grew up with a military dad, and military
Mm.
dads have a certain expectation of you get up in the morning and you make your bed and you eat a certain way and, like there's order, right?
Yeah.
And he grew up with a car dealer dad, and his mom worked. She was a dietitian in a hospital.
Mm.
And so he had a lot of help in the house. So they had a housekeeper that would come behind them and pick everything up, you know? So, but I didn't have that, right? My mom was home,
Mhm.
but she didn't clean up after me. She expected me to do it and do a lot of that kind of thing. So when we first got married, we had some disagreements about, like, I'll tell you this story. When we were first married, he had this habit
Uh-huh.
of walking in the house and taking off his shoes right in front of the door, and then taking off his jacket and throwing it over a chair, and taking off his tie and throwing it over another chair. So there was like a path of crumbs of him
Wow.
through the living room, on his way to the kitchen. And it would drive me nuts because the shoes were always right in front of the stairs and you trip over them because 'cause they're big man's shoes, and, it was right when I had little small children that, you're always carrying them and you can't see your feet,
Yeah.
and so I remember one time I would fuss at him like, "Hey, can you please pick your stuff up? Like, do you have to leave your stuff right here? Can you please pick it up?"
Yeah.
And I'd fuss at him and I'd pick it up, which is the wrong thing to do, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, anyway, I got so mad one time that I picked it all up and I threw it out on the front lawn.
That was not fighting fair, especially after you didn't.
And he's like, "What did you do that for?" I said, "I'm
I
sick of
had
asking you to
enough.
pick it up. I'm not asking again."
Wow.
So, and actually after that, he started picking up after himself. So maybe it was worth it.
So what taught you to fight fair other than that then? Was it counseling or something?
Don't call names. Don't get mad and call names, that happens so often in marriages, and you know what? I was the name caller. I would get mad. He
Mm.
wouldn't. He actually never would. He's never called me a name. He never has, but I would get mad and call him a name, and that was I had to ask him to forgive me and not act like that. But,
Yeah.
he didn't hear that in his family, but I heard it in mine. My parents would get mad and call each other names.
Yeah.
And, but his parents wouldn't. His parents would fight with not speaking, and I saw them do it. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. That is one of the reasons why I've started this podcast because I won't say all, but a lot of how we operate in the world is from our own lenses. And
Mhm.
so until we can see a different perspective or a different way of doing a thing, then we keep doing that thing. It can be the most wrong thing in the world, but if you don't know any better, if you don't see better examples, then
Mhm.
it is what you do, and it's not that you're intending to hurt, harm, or disrespect people in many cases, but if you just didn't know any better, you just
Right.
didn't know any better. So, but yeah, that's yeah. We fight differently based on how we witness fights happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur yourself now.
Mhm.
Would you say you've got a different type of perspective or a different level of respect for entrepreneurship now that you are? Like, did it change how you think about entrepreneurship after
Mhm.
becoming one yourself?
Mhm. To become and anybody can say, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur," right? Anybody can say it. To
Mhm.
make a living that sustains your family over and over again, year after year, it takes discipline. And so I'm a real estate agent. I sell homes,
Mhm.
and I've sold homes now for 9 years. And so I sold homes when the market was hot, and I've sold homes when you couldn't, when the last couple of years have been difficult, you know? And prior to that, when I worked in the banks and I was doing home loans, I did
Mhm.
them from 2003 until, the bank went under in 2009. And no, before that, I think I started in, let's see, Francis was born in 2000. So it would have been 2001 to 2009. So I've been through many markets, right? And so
Mhm.
what I would say is for somebody to be able to sustain themselves and sustain providing for their family as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, that takes grit, it takes determination, it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes having a multitude of skills, right? And wearing a multitude of hats. Because I can't be just good at selling the house, right? I have to be able to market the house. I have to be able to understand what needs to be prepped about a house. I have to be able to read a profit and loss statement, and any person in business. So like my husband with had this car care product business now for a couple of years. For him to be able to sustain it and grow it, he's had to learn how to market it. He's had to learn how to develop the product. He's had to learn how to develop the labels for the bottles. He's had to learn how to source, having everything made, and where do the bottles come from? Where does the product formula come from? All those different things, having,
Yeah,
work with manufacturers, getting the safety sheets done. So anybody who's in any kind of business, there's so many lines of things that they have to learn in order
that's
to do
right.
the business,
Mhm.
in order to sustain it and grow it.
Mhm.
And I just have a lot of respect for that, because you don't know what you don't know until you start getting
That's
in there
right.
and doing it. And when you start getting in there and doing it, you're not gonna be good at it for a while.
Wow,
It you have
that's
to
right.
you gotta get your reps in to really
Yeah.
to build the muscle, right, to be any good.
Mhm.
And fall down and make mistakes, and, so it's given me a lot of empathy for him to watch this new business grow and for
Mhm.
him to do what he's doing. And it's also like, as I'm watching him do it, I'm like, okay, now you really need to look at your past sales and analyze them. And he'll go, well, what does that mean? And I'll say, well, okay, if I'm looking at it from a home selling, this is what I would look at. So, but you're looking at product sales.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so it's interesting to watch somebody else go where I've already been as far as building a business,
Yeah.
and and I have a lot more empathy now that I don't think I would have had as a if he would have started this business versus the other one that he started initially,
Mhm. Mhm.
because we both would have both been learning it together, you know?
Okay.
I I wouldn't have had the empathy I have for him now,
Yeah.
because I would have been worried about taking care of my small children and feeding them and keeping the lights on, and I'm not so worried about that anymore because I have my business and it functions and it runs.
Mhm.
And the other thing, that when you can see somebody putting in the effort and you know that the effort is going to lead somewhere, right? Then it's, for me, it's actually a position of less risk when I see him putting in the effort, because
Okay.
I know the effort will lead to something. It will lead to sales. It will lead to growth. Just keep putting in the effort. Don't give up. Put in the effort. If I were to see him, and I'm just putting this out there because Jeff is a hard worker. If I were to see him say, "Oh, I'm going to sell this car care product business," and then he's just, you know, farting around all day and not actually putting any real effort into it,
Yeah.
that would be frustrating for me. That I'd have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
But I see the real effort and I know that it's going to lead to growth. And that actually gives me a feeling of peace and safety, if you will.
That's good. That's good. So, you said a lot of really good things about what has helped you to be the great wife of an entrepreneur, but also an entrepreneur for yourself. But for the woman that is listening to this conversation and she is feeling really exhausted, like she's carrying a lot of the weight while he's just doing his business.
Hmm.
What are, a few things that you just kind of want to summarize to help her to take a look at maybe that can help her to see it from a different perspective?
Well, I would say the things that helped Jeff and I were
Mhm.
getting on the same page about communication. And I had to understand how he wanted to communicate and be
Mhm.
willing to communicate with him the way he wanted to communicate.
Mhm.
And that I know for women, particularly when you're up all night with small kids and
Mhm.
doing all the things that we do, can be really, really hard.
Yeah.
But, the times that I've sat down with him and I've said, it helps me to feel safe if you will just tell me what's going on. And I've also said it to him in what I've said, how can I pray for you?
Mm.
How can I effectively pray for you?
Okay.
That, and then and we as women love to talk, and we oftentimes like to just hear our own words and talk and talk and talk. It is really, really, and men don't talk, right? We need 50 words to say what they can say in 10 words,
Mhm.
right? I remember when I first got married, my mom told me, okay, now you're married, so you need to know when you talk to your husband, talk slowly and clearly and use 10 words or less.
Told you that.
She told me
Wow.
that. I thought she was nuts. Do you know, it is like that is gold. It is like solid gold. You can take it to the bank. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I would say, if we really want to know what's going on with our husbands, if younger me, heeding that advice. So, like, hey, Jeff, how can I pray for you? And really wait for him to answer. And, most men are going to take a minute before they can answer, and be willing to shut and wait for the answer.
Cara, oh my goodness, you are so talking to me in so many different parts of our conversation. You have definitely helped me. So I know that you're going to help other people that are listening. And even something that, we said when we had our conversation pre-recording, which was months ago, but
Yeah.
I was so grateful for that conversation, and I've shared with other people some of the things that you have said to me during that conversation that was really helpful. So I want to thank you. Thank you for that. I thank God for, even though you and Jeff had some tough times, it was not wasted, because you guys are doing so much better. But
Mhm.
also you sharing what you've gone through, what you both have experienced together and have gotten to the other side. Not that you won't have disagreements and things like that, because we're always going to have disagreements, but you're doing it in a different way. And the fact that
Mhm.
you're sharing it in the way is going to help so many people. So I'm grateful for that. But before we, get off, I do want you to take an opportunity to share whatever else it is you want to share with the audience about You're a realtor in the San Francisco Bay. If you want to talk about just business, Cavanaugh Finest, have the floor.
Oh, Janelle, thank you so much for having me on the show. I have
Oh,
really enjoyed my time with you, and I've enjoyed getting to know you. And I hope
thank
we get
you.
to do it again, and I've really I've loved it. And if I can
Awesome.
if I can encourage another woman to
Mhm.
hang in there, because being married to an entrepreneur is no easy thing. But
Mhm.
if they consider the fact that he's willing to take the provision of his family into his own two hands, that is a really loving thing, you know? He's not willing to give it to somebody else and hopefully it'll work out, right? He's willing to hold it in his own two hands and work it in his own
Yeah.
two hands. That's actually that's a really a form of love and deep respect for you as the wife and for his children. I think we as wives, if we can, this being a wife is so hard and sometimes it's like you want to rip your hair out. But if we can take a minute and look at how hard he's working and what he's doing for us and for our
Mhm.
family and
Yeah.
just love him and cherish him and be grateful for the work he's doing. And okay, it might not be getting the results we want, and we might have not have all the things we want. And sometimes he says things we don't like. And, you know,
Mhm.
you're going to have that no matter who you're married to. So be grateful for the one that you're married to,
Yeah.
you know, be grateful that he's willing to go on this journey to make something more of himself so that he can provide for you. That's, that's such a wonderful thing. Be willing to pray for him and come
Mhm.
alongside him and support him. And I have found when I make it more about what kind of wife I can be for him and less about what kind of husband he needs to be for me, I feel so much more fulfilled
Mm. Yeah.
than when I make it about myself. It's never going to be good enough, you know? But when I get out of my own way and make it about him,
Yeah.
I'm already so grateful for what I have, you know?
That's really good.
So if that can help another woman out there to have a better marriage, I
Yeah.
hope it does because that was hard learned. And if you ever need to buy or sell,
Real quick, I want to say kudos to Jeff because truly, this podcast is about the woman and her perspective, but the mindset shifts and how we're doing better in the
hmm
position. But truly, they have experiences with being married as an entrepreneur, and so he stuck around. So he has definitely demonstrated patience and
hmm
love. And same with my husband, patience and love because there were times I weren't the easiest to get along with either. So kudos to Jeff, kudos to Mr. Will, my husband. But yeah, tell us about the real estate and the car business, car care.
Well, I've been a real estate agent in East Bay, San Francisco East Bay, so Oakland, Alameda, for 9 years now.
Hmm.
And if anybody's needing help up there, I'd love to help you. You're welcome to Google me, Cara Cavanaugh, and look me up. And I'm also licensed in Arizona, and I serve in Phoenix, greater Phoenix area. And I've been licensed in Arizona for 2 years now. Because as our kids have gotten older, we
Yeah.
found ourselves going back and forth between Phoenix and the Bay Area because all three of them have chosen schools in Arizona. So now I kind of split my time between both areas.
Okay.
And then Jeff, about 5 years ago, he discovered a graphene product for cars, which is a lot like ceramic coating, but it goes on, ceramic coating has to cure, it takes forever to go on, it can feel
Mm.
tacky, and really you have to have it professionally installed. And he discovered that graphene, you can do it yourself. It can act as a cleaner as well as a paint protectant. A little bit goes a long way.
Okay.
And so he worked for about and he just got interested in this because he's been in the car business his whole life. He got interested in this about 5 years, or excuse me, about 7 years ago. And then he started the business. Now he's in his second year. And you can look him up. It's cavanaughsfinest.com. And the product is manufactured in Anaheim. So it's US made. And
Okay.
it's a graphene and a quick detail and rubber vinyl cleaner and a soap. But
Okay.
our big claim to fame is the graphene, and it can be used on paint, on airplanes, marine, cars, and in
Mhm.
fact, we have about 24 fire departments across the Southwest and California that use it to preserve the trucks, because those trucks, who knew? They're like $2 or $3 million a piece. They're very
Oh,
expensive
wow.
vehicles.
Wow.
So maintaining their paint and the neat thing about graphene is it is a UV protectant. It's really a cool product that he developed. And so I'm really proud of him. I'm really proud of what he's doing.
That's good. And you're talking about what he does, and that is also a jewel that women that are listening can kind of key in or clue in on, is the fact that you are familiar. You know a
Mhm.
lot about his business. And so when you can at least know something about what he's doing and to be able to share, that too can help to improve the connection and communication and things of that nature, and help you now. You're on his side, you're on his team as opposed to opposite. So
Mhm.
I love
Mhm.
that. You can go out and speak about your husband's business. So that's awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything else?
I think we've run the gamut.
All right. All right. So, for all of you that are listening, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. You are not alone, but there is hope on the other side. There really is. Just a little change of mindset, some prayer, some communication, self care is important
Mhm.
as well. You really can have the type of relationship, the type of marriage that you desire for yourself and your partner, being married to an entrepreneur. So I know we see a lot of the exciting things in the highlight reels, but there are some struggles here and there, but you don't have to struggle for an extended period of time. So continue to tune in as we bring on other women that are sharing their jewels and their testimonies that can help you in your relationship. If you have not subscribed yet to the channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and share it with another woman that you think can benefit from these conversations that we're having. So until next time, thanks again for joining us on Real Talks with an Entrepreneur's Wife. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.